There doesn't seem to be that many 7-seater all-electric vehicles, but Kia is trying to change that with the EV9. Now it's available as a 6 and a 7-seater, with prices starting from £65,000 for the rear-wheel drive model, or if you go for the all-wheel drive model, prices will start from roughly £73,000. In this review, you can see if it's actually worth its price tag and how it compares to some of the other larger-sized all-electric SUVs. So to kick things off, I would like to point out that the EV9 is indeed available as a 6 or 7-seater. If you do want it in the former configuration, you will have to go for the top spec GT Line S, something worth considering. Now this is of course at the time of filming and in the UK, which of course it might change in the future. Now in terms of the headroom and legroom that you've got for those people who are sat in the second row, it's absolutely excellent. No problems whatsoever as someone who's just under 6 foot. And due to the fact that it's got a completely flat rear footwell design, it means those people who are sat in the middle won't have a problem either. I'd go as far as saying that if you're even playing in the NBA, you'll be comfortably sat in the EV9. Now, it's also very easy to access the third row. There's a button found just by the seat over here, which makes it quite accessible. And as you'll be able to see, the seat kind of just props open. Now, for those people who are sat at the back, there's actually a button found just above over here. Now, accessing the third row couldn't be simpler. Now, in terms of legroom, it is going to be a bit more limited. It's not too bad, specifically given the fact that the second row seats can be pushed forwards a little bit, and they do of course recline a little bit, but it does mean that those people who are going to be larger size adults might feel a little bit uncomfortable, specifically on longer drives. However, younger adults or those people who are children won't have any issues whatsoever. Now, what really took me by surprise, as a reminder, I'm just under 6 foot, headroom is absolutely excellent. I don't feel coined in or hemmed in like I do in some of the other 7-seaters I've sat in, and therefore it's something to be actually really impressed about if you're looking at the EV9. If you're going to be looking at the vehicle, make sure you check out the amount of headroom that is available in the third row, because I do think it's actually quite class leading. Now, what's more is that all the seats are very soft and accommodating, and the rear outer seats even come heated as standard. Now, better still, at the front of the cabin, you have got power, heated and ventilated front seats that come fitted as standard with a heated steering wheel, which is very much appreciated in colder climate scenarios. Now, all the seats themselves are made of bio-PU foam material, which means they're cushiony soft, and you've also got a really nice headrest. You've also got recycled PET yarn for the stitching. Now, if you do want to up the ante and want electronic controls for the passenger, relaxation seats for the front 2 occupants, a memory function for the driver's seat with an ergo motion seat, which effectively gives you a massage function, then you'll have to go for the GT line or above. In the GT Line S, you will also find a front and second row sunroof, where the rear sunshade is electronically operated and the front one is manually operated. So aside from seating comfort, what about when it comes to driving comfort? Well, here's another area that I'm actually really impressed with the EV9. Now, its suspension system actually does fare very well. In terms of its normal or eco modes, it seems to soak up a lot of the anomalies, the speed bumps and the potholes, and therefore leads for an actual pleasurable driving experience. But if you go on the sport mode preset, it feels like everything's been tightened up a little bit, and therefore means that you actually get a little less body lean. Now, granted, it's not going to quite compete with some of the adaptive air suspension systems out there, namely, for example, from the likes of Audi, but it's still good in the grand scheme of things. Now, there is a little bit of body lean that is present, which should come as no surprise given the size and indeed class of the vehicle. And in terms of the driver's input, it's not going to quite compete with some of the sportier alternatives. But who really cares? Because this vehicle does still actually feel pretty engaging to drive. Now, this perfectly brings me on to performance, where all the models come fitted with a 99.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And here, the rear-wheel drive model has got a singular motor that's planted on the rear axle, and therefore combines with the battery pack to output 149.5 kilowatts of power, or 200.5 horsepower, and 350 Newton meters of torque. It's claimed to go from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 9.4 seconds, and has a top speed of 114 miles an hour. Now, the all-wheel drive model, which I had the pleasure of testing, is far more punchy. Indeed, over here it's got 2 electric motors and therefore an all-wheel drive configuration, giving you a little bit more peace of mind and extra traction on the roads, and outputting a whopping 283 kilowatts of power, or 379.5 horsepower, and a crazy 700 Newton meters of torque. It's claimed to go from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 5.3 seconds and has a top speed of 124 miles an hour. Now, I put the all-wheel drive model through its paces using Race Logic's Performance Box Touch, and it went from 0 to 20 miles an hour in just 1.35 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 1.97 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 4.9 seconds, which is absolutely ludicrous for a vehicle of its size, and 50 to 70 miles an hour in 2.77 seconds, and I also recorded a peak acceleration of 0.74 Gs. Indeed, the all-wheel drive model has no right to be this fast, but indeed it is gonna send you flying back to your headrest. Now, while that's all very impressive, what about when it comes to the all-important electric range? Well, here you've got that 99.8 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is integrated with a heat pump. This comes featured as standard across the entire trim range, at least at the time of filming and in the UK. Now, it's worth considering that you have got the rear-wheel drive model, which has got a better WLTP claim of 343 miles, while the all-wheel drive model, which is actually on review and on test, sits at 313 miles. Now, despite that fact, I actually netted a very respectable 240 to 260 miles, and considering the near sub-zero climates that I was actually driving in Scotland, that's actually very impressive. You can see that heat pump really does come into effect. I suspect if I was in a bit warmer climate, I'd be able to net north of 280 miles with the all-wheel drive model, and therefore wouldn't be surprised to see the rear-wheel drive model hitting north of 300 miles. Now, as you'll be able to see, it actually does fare very well in the mileage leaderboard. So much so that it's actually one of the longest range, larger sized electric SUVs that I've tested to date. And therefore it's a testament to not only the battery pack efficiency, but also the integration of the heat pump that really does bolster its overall electric range. Now, for you to be as efficient as possible, you've got regenerative braking, which is of course applied when you put your foot down on the physical brake pedal, but also can be done when you lift off the accelerator pedal. Now, here it's great to see such a degree of customization that's provided by Kia. The same praise could be said about some of the other vehicles that the manufacturer produces. Now, right now I'm on level 0 mode, and via the flappy pedals that are found behind the steering wheel, I can adjust the level of regenerative braking. So right now I'm going to lift off, driving at 55 miles an hour. Go on level 1, you can start seeing that I'm decelerating. Level 2, decelerating even more. Level 3, decelerating even more harshly. And then iPedal mode, which makes it come to a complete standstill. So yes, indeed, you have got a one pedal drive on the Kia EV9, and that is really much appreciated. Not the same that could be said about some of the alternatives out there on the market. Now, furthermore, you've got the auto mode, which can be accessed at any time by holding on the right side flappy paddle, and this will go on the preset modes that you have gone via the infotainment system. Now, yes, indeed, the manufacturers provide you with plenty of options, and therefore there'll be something that suits your needs. Now, of course, you have got the ability to plug it in, and here via its CCS port, it will take up to 210 kilowatts, therefore meaning it can go from 10 to 80% in just 24 minutes. If you connect it up to a 50 kilowatt charge point, it will go from 10 to 80% in 1 hour and 23 minutes instead. Now, as for a 7 kilowatt wall box, it will take 9 hours and 5 minutes, going from 10 to 100%, while connected up to a 3-pin wall socket, it will take a whopping 40 hours and 35 minutes. Now, it's also worth mentioning that vehicle-to-load charging is also present on the Kia EV9. This is actually featured as standard across the entire trim range, and therefore means that you can discharge the vehicle's battery pack at a rate of 2.3 kilowatts or thereabouts, and therefore can power a household appliance or, of course, charge another electric vehicle. So aside from all of that, what about when it comes to its interior design? Well, I did cover before in terms of the seats themselves. They're very cushiony, soft and accommodating, but also the stitching work and the upholstery is actually very nice. The same could be said around the center console, around the dashboard, the steering wheel, and even the door trims. Now, of course, it's not going to compete with more premium alternatives, but I think a lot of people will actually appreciate being sat within the EV9. Furthermore, you've actually got a practical design as well, which isn't the same that could be said about some of its key competitors. You've got physical buttons on the steering wheel. You've got those flappy paddles, which are found behind the steering wheel. You've got physical stalks. Yes, Tesla, I am looking at you. Then you've also got a small little gear selector, which is actually conveniently placed. And then you've also got some physical dials and switches that are found towards the dashboard, and even some haptic buttons that are found just underneath the 12.3-inch infotainment system. Speaking of which, over here, the display itself is very responsive, intuitively laid out, and also very easy to understand. The submenu and the menu layout all very much make sense. It also supports Android Auto and Apple CarPlay over a wired and wireless connection, which is certainly appreciated. And you've even got turn-based navigation data that feeds through to the instrument cluster, which also has got a 12.3-inch display. It's somewhat customizable and also very vivid and provides you all the key driving information that you'll require. Now in the GT Line S, you will also find a head-up display, which further projects the overall use of technology within the cabin and therefore keeps your eyes planted on the road while giving you all the key driving information such as the safety systems that are in operation or indeed your traversing speed. Speaking of which, in the top spec trim you'll find a 14-speaker Meridian audio system, which does actually fare well across a sound frequency range. However, it's not going to quite compete with some of the flagship audio systems out there that are offered from the likes of BMW or, for example, Tesla. Now, what does come fitted as a standard across the entire trim range in the EV9 is a small fingerprint sensor. It can actually be found by the center console. This allows you to authenticate the vehicle and gives you an extra degree of security. Now, you've also got USB Type-C ports that are found by the dashboard, one of which is actually used to connect up to the infotainment system. For example, if you want higher audio fidelity, you might want to plug in your smartphone. It's actually very intuitively done with the layout that they've done, and you've also got a 12-volt socket, which can be handy for plugging in, let's say, a dash cam. Now, this does actually perfectly bring me on to storage within the cabin, and here it's absolutely excellent. You have got the glove box, which is pretty sizable. You've then got a massive open area by the center console, and then above it you've got two cup holders which can actually be retracted, and you've even got a small little tray which can hide the cup holders altogether. Then you've got a wireless smartphone charger which is fitted as standard, and then you've got a very small compartment found within the center armrest compartment. Then at the rear of the center console you've got a further two cup holders for your rear occupants, and then you've got a massive storage area that is found towards the rear portion and underneath the center console, which is actually quite a rarity. Then you've got the door bins, which are pretty large at the front, and then unsurprisingly a little bit more limited at the rear. Now, if you're not going to be using your rear middle seat, you can actually have the pull down armrest compartment reveal two further cup holders. Speaking of which, there are also cup holders for the third row occupants and even USB Type-C ports to provide charge, all of which is very handy. And just to add the cherry on top, you've even got climate controls for the rear occupants and air vents which are positioned towards the headliner. Now, of course, when it comes to storage, we have to talk about its boot capacity. And here you have got 333 litres to play around with, which will suffice for those small little shops. But of course, if you drop the third row, you'll have even larger amount of space. You've actually got 52 litres at the front of the vehicle as well, often referred to as a frunk. Now, in terms of practicality, you've got a power tailgate and a hatchback design that comes fitted as standard across the entire trim range, a flat loading bay with 60/40 rear split folding seats, at least for the second row, and 50/50 auto fold seats for the third row. You've even got 3-pin sockets at the back, which serves for vehicle to load charging, and of course if you want to power any sort of household appliances. And you've even got a large underfloor compartment, which will actually fit the removable and retractable boot load cover. A small little touch from the manufacturer, but one that's actually very much appreciated. Past all of this, let's talk about something quite subjective, and by that I mean its exterior design. I'd be curious to know what you make of it down the comment section below. Personally, I really love what the automaker has achieved with this large-sized SUV. It's got a robust and muscular look at the front, and that's namely due to how the bonnet feeds towards the front bumper and how the headlights feed seamlessly towards the sidle profile. You've also got pretty large wheel arches, which of course serve a purpose, but still do not detract from the overall sidle profile. And then you've got 19-inch alloys that come fitted as standard in the cheaper trims, or 21-inch alloys in the GT line and above. As for the rear, you've got a sleek, clean and modern twist to it due to how the tail lights feed seamlessly with the integrated spoiler. Now, the vehicle comes as standard in a red colour finish. If however you want a different colour, then you'll have to splash out £725. It is worth noting that the Pacific Matte Blue is exclusive for the 6-seater model. Now, past its sumptuous exterior design, I would like to point out that the Kia EV9 has got class-leading towing capacity, at least if you go for a brake trailer on the all-wheel drive configuration, sitting in at a whopping 2,500 kilograms, which is the largest figure that I've seen quoted by any manufacturer, at least on UK roads. This does drop, however, to 900 kilograms on the rear-wheel drive model. Moving swiftly on, we get on to safety. And no matter which trim level you opt for, you will find a full 5 out of 5 Euro NCAP score, scoring 84% in adult occupancy, 88% in child occupancy, and 83% in its safety assist scores. Now, when it comes to the driver assistance systems, there are a plethora of them that come featured as standard, which is absolutely fantastic to see. I really did love the navigation smart cruise control with stop and go technology because it did a fantastic job of keeping me at a safe distance from the leading vehicle. It didn't feel jerky in the slightest. Better still, with the addition of highway driving assist level 2, it gave me steering support as well, which meant that those longer motorway drives just felt a little less cumbersome. Now, I also love the fact that the manufacturer has incorporated a button on the steering wheel to quickly disable lane keep assist and lane follow assist. This is quite handy because this comes enabled every single time you switch on the vehicle and is therefore something that you might want to do if you live around the country roads. Now, past that, you have got forward collision avoidance assist, intelligent speed limit assist, blind spot collision avoidance assist with rear cross traffic assist, and you've also got the blind spot view monitor, which I've previously seen in other Kia and Hyundai vehicles, where it integrates the side view cameras directly into the instrument cluster, giving you a quick indication of your surroundings before you actually maneuver the vehicle. On that note, the EV9 has a turning circle of just 12.3 meters, which is seriously impressive for a vehicle of its size and class. Now, indeed, parking the vehicle is an absolute breeze because visibility at the front and side are absolutely excellent, while at the rear it can be a little bit more limited due to the elongated sort of profile. But thankfully, you do have front and rear parking sensors and high-resolution 360-degree cameras, giving you peace of mind when it comes to doing those more complex parking maneuvers. If, however, you want a helping hand, the remote smart park assist comes featured in the GT line and the GT Line S. So with all that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict, and quite frankly, the Kia EV9 ticks a lot of boxes. First off, it's competitively priced, at least if you look at some of the other larger sized electric SUVs, with prices starting at roughly £65,000. That's actually far cheaper than the likes of what Tesla, BMW, Mercedes-Benz or even Audi offer. Then you've also got a 6 or 7 seater configuration, which is quite a rarity in the electric SUV market. A comfortable driving experience, not only due to its suspension system, but also the plush interior. You've also got a practical interior design with plenty of technology, a plethora of driver assistance systems, a good amount of space for your second and third row occupants, and also a decent amount of boot capacity. Now, just to top it off, you've got a really impressive electric range. So given all of this, it's actually very easy to see ourselves recommending the EV9, and therefore it gets our Best Buy award. Now, we'd be curious to know what you make of it down in the comment section below and how you feel it compares to some of its main competitors. Now, if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.